It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming on YouTube if you'd like to watch us at the Team 980. And we are here to remind you to start off this Thursday edition of the show in the middle of July that the Wizards front office is playing chess, not checkers. That's right. We're starting with Wizards today, and we're starting with them signing a D.C. native. Saddiq Bey gets a 3-year, $20 million deal yesterday. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't really anticipate talking about this that much on the show today until Anthony and I were talking before the show, and you mentioned it, and you're like, well, do we want to start with Saddiq Bey and you know him signing? And I was like, I don't know how big of a move that is. But then as we started to talk through it, I realized it kind of proves a point that I have been trying to tell people for months, and certainly I'm not the only one. I'm not going to do I am the only one who could tell you this very apparent to those paying attention piece of information. It's not the kind of sports talk radio show this is. It's not the kind of sports talk host I am. However, I have been in the thick of a war with the Denny Obvious stance, and I just would like to put out some data, put out some information, put out an opinion that I don't think should be that controversial, but perhaps will make people who do not currently hold the opinion that Denny Avdia getting traded was a good thing for the Wizards, reconsider. That's the goal. Just a little persuasion to start the show on a Thursday, Anthony. Are you ready for this?
I am indeed, Craig.
I am of the opinion that having Saddiq Bey, Bub Carrington, another future first-round pick, 2 second-round picks in the future, Malcolm Brogdon, is better than having just Denny Avdia. Some people will disagree with that. And, by the way, I will add on the my side of the trade, if you will, an increased chance at Cooper Flagg. Because what the Wizards have done here is make the next move after the Avdia trade. Well, I guess the next move. They drafted Bub Carrington with the pick that they got on draft night for Avdia. So that was the next chess move. Then the one after that is, what do we do with the extra cap space? Because while Denny was on a phenomenally efficient contract, trading him did create some space for them. And the player that they've ultimately signed into that space is Saddiq Bey. And I think after last year, it is hard to make an argument that on its merits, on its own, that Saddiq Bey is a better player than Denny Avdia. I think Avdia's upside as a playmaker is better. And I think the shooting trends favor Avdia. Now, Bey had been a significantly better shooter and still on average for their careers, 2 guys that came out in the same year. They both played 4 seasons in the NBA. Bey is less than a year older. Like, he's already turned 25. Denny will. But they're very similar age players. And over the course of their career, Bey has actually played more games, shot a higher percentage, has a better scoring average. Like, the career numbers are generally tilted towards Saddiq Bey, but last year's numbers are tilted towards Avdia, and some of them more significantly, because Bey's 3-point shooting went down, Avdia's went way up, et cetera, et cetera. The best season that either of them has had is probably Bey's second year in the league, where he averaged 16 a game. Good shooting numbers, the whole deal. I would say Bey and Avdia are similar defensively. I think ultimately Bey's probably the better, like, pure 3-and-D player, catch and shoot, etc. Avdia has more playmaking upside. If you're telling me it's just the player, just those two, I would rather have Denny Avdia moving forward. But it's not just Denny Avdia moving forward. It's Saddiq Bey plus all the other stuff I mentioned. And the last thing I mentioned is kind of a big deal, which is you have a better chance of landing Cooper Flagg and the number 1 pick in next year's draft with Denny Avdia in Portland and Saddiq Bey here than Denny Avdia here. Why? Because Saddiq Bey, unfortunately, tore his ACL late last season. He is going to miss the entirety, likely, maybe he comes back late, but probably the entirety of the 2024-25 season. So you give him a full year to recover plus, which is actually, based off all the medical information, is exactly what you should do. Can guys get back in 9 months? Yes. But every month you wait past that mark, and specifically every month you wait even past a year for full return to play, your chances of re-tearing your ACL drop precipitously or significantly. So if Saddiq Bey can, even if he were to be ready, but they don't need him because it's the end of a season, it's probably a season where they're not winning a whole lot. And if he wants to get back on the court and get a few minutes, rip off the Band-Aid, okay, if the medical team says so. But also there's no pressure for him to get back. But will he be ready to contribute in 25-26? Absolutely. He'll come back fully healthy, maybe even stronger. He probably comes back a better player. He has been in two organizations that are pretty messy. Atlanta last year and a half or so, and Detroit before that. And those organizations have not exactly been bastions of player development and bastions of competency in the time that he was at each of them. So I think you get that in 25-26. You get Bub Carrington, who you would not have without this trade, as a promising rookie. You get the 2029 pick from Portland. You get 2 seconds, all of which could turn into players, but also could just turn into trade chips. Washington's trying to assemble their war chest so that eventually if they need to make a big trade, they can. And because Bey is not playing and Denny Avdia is a good basketball player who can help you win games right now, is also not playing because you traded him, your chances of being the worst team in the league go up, which means your chances of landing Cooper Flag, of winning Capture the Flag, if you will, go up as well. This is the type of chess game that Winger and Dawkins are playing. Now, will they ultimately win this game of chess? I don't know. If they don't get Flag and they don't get Ace Bailey and they wind up with the 4th pick next year, God forbid they finish like 3rd worst in the league and have the worst lottery luck and lose their pick next year because it's only top 5 protected. Yeah, like this is a gamble that didn't pay off. But the process is good. The process is right. This is yet another example of them having the foresight to think multiple moves ahead, and you just have to be able to connect the dots as a fan and follow along, as opposed to freaking out at every single move, being like, oh my God, they got worse today. Yeah, on the day they traded Denny Avdia, in the immediacy, they became worse as a basketball team. But it's so they could raise their ceiling in the long run. And this is another one of those moves that helps close that gap back closer to where they were, which obviously wasn't even that good. They won, 15, 16 games last year? And then ultimately will blow through that, hopefully in 2 years, and then be competitive 3 to 4 years down the road in a fairly significant way. Especially if they get Flag and he's as good as advertised early on, and certainly once he and Sarr and Koulibaly and all these guys get out of their late teens and early 20s and into their mid-20s and their early parts of their prime, and then hopefully you got a 5, 6, 7, 8 year championship window if you can retain them all. Which, team building is going to be pretty fun in the next couple of years with this new, first and second apron stuff. But you got to get the talent in the door to even begin worrying about the ability to retain it over time. Let's start by getting it in the door, and yet another step in that direction. Because let's also say in 2025, Saddiq Bey comes back and all of a sudden he's averaging 18 a game on 45% three-point shooting. And a team at the deadline is like, hey, we'll give you 2 first-round picks for Saddiq Bey because we need shooting. Sick. That's how you keep a young team together. You need more young players, cheap contracts. So great stuff. And Bey, by the way, is not that expensive at 3 years, $20 million. So that is the Saddiq Bey move. That is the chess piece. And I am curious on the phones at 301-230-0980. Has your opinion changed on the Avdia trade at all? As we sit here in the middle of the summer, we've seen a couple of these chess moves now. Were you mad about it on draft night? Or do you get it now? Are you like, I was cool with it, but now I'm like, I don't know. 301-230-0980. Taking your calls in the middle of the summer on the Wizards? Yeah, baby. Let's do it. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube too at the Team 980, which becomes extra relevant here in a few moments because we have Never Read the Comments coming at you at 4:30 today. Joe Theismann, 5 o'clock. Yeah, Joe T's playing the American Century golf tournament before he takes his tee time out there in Lake Tahoe. He's going to give us a ring. We'll talk about the Brandon Ayuk situation, how he would handle it. I'm curious how Joe would have handled it as a young player, as a young quarterback, if he was in Jaden Daniels' shoes, and also how he would have handled it later in his career. Like, what if he was Marcus Mariota right now? Like, what would he say to Jaden about all this? Would he say anything? So we'll talk to Joe T about that, what he's looking forward to for the Commanders season, all that kind of stuff coming up in just a little bit. Lynnell at 5:30 today. Jeff Reuter from The Athletic joins us at 6 o'clock talking about Greg Berhalter getting fired. Unfortunately, Anthony, the dreams of Jurgen Klopp have already died.
Dang, what happened?
They approached him, and he was like, I'm good. Thanks, though.
Is that an indictment on the talent we have, or?
I think it's like we're not one of the premier jobs in the world, and I think he genuinely would like to take a break. Like, unfortunately, the timelines don't mesh.
Not the life we deserve, man.
No. I don't know what we deserve as American soccer fans, but
we need it to grow. That's what we do need.
We need to grow, yes.
Yes.
That is for sure. By the way, next Tuesday, U.S. Women's National Team. They'll be here. Their final send-off game before Paris. So, working on some stuff around that. So we'll see what we can do next Tuesday ahead of that game. It's down the street at Audi Field. So, should be fun.
That is fun.
Be going. It's going to be hot as hell. But I'm actually going as a press member, not as a fan for once, which means I get air conditioning. Hey-o!
That's nice.
Yeah. My season tickets at Audi Field for the Spirit are lovely, except for when it's 97 degrees at kickoff, and you're like, oh, my God. Yeah. The first couple games back from the break, by the way, are like afternoon games in the dead of August. Brah. They might have to move those around. We can't be doing a 2 p.m. start on like August 20, whatever.
Didn't they move some of the games back?
Yeah, they've moved games because of heat already.
Okay, just making sure. I'm not going to lie. When the last game I was at, I want to say I spent, because it was hot and humid, the first half of the game, I spent, so you know where your seats were?
Yeah. You were at the part where that you had access to an inside suite.
No. I was on the, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you could sit inside or outside, and you chose to sit inside.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not a problem for you anymore because you're banned.
It was a nice breeze and everything, you know? I am banned.
Yeah, you are currently banned.
The thing is, though, if the Spirit does lose again,
then
can I come back? Because at that point, I'm not the curse.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't watch on Saturday, though. Did you?
I did not. Did we win?
Yeah, 3-0.
Oh, wow. That didn't help me.
No, it didn't.
So I'll watch from home. Hopefully we win.
Yeah, we'll see what happens if you even watch from home.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when you're there.
Good gracious.
You got any thoughts on Saddiq Bey? You've seen him play because he's a DC guy. He went to DeMatha and then transferred to Sidwell and graduated from Sidwell.
Yes, I did get to see Saddiq play a little bit. I like the signing. First of all, it's a short deal. We get him for a bargain price. And to be honest, I think he's a really good player, to be honest. What he did in Detroit, definitely we would love for him to, get back to that player. But going from Detroit to Atlanta, we sort of kind of saw a decline. But I think fresh start here in Washington, I think that's going to give him the time to be able to recover from his injury and then also grow into, who he could possibly be. Again, I do think he's a good player. He can shoot the ball exceptionally well. I think he can play me. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But his time at Villanova, he definitely showed that. His time at Sidwell, he showed that. He played for Team Takeover here. He showed that. So I've seen this guy, and I think maybe it's my biasness coming out. But I think this was a good signing for us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I like it. It's a high upside play with very little downside.
Yeah.
And again, like these are the types of flyers you take when you're in the middle of a rebuild like this. It's like, okay, Saddiq Bey is a guy who, I believe it was that second year in Detroit, but in his career, has a 50-point game.
Yep.
There aren't a lot of dudes walking around in the NBA that have scored 50. I mean, this town lost its mind when Avdia scored 43 last year. Saddiq Bey scored 51 in a game. So we know the upside, the potential is there. I think the question is, what is he going to be when he comes back off this injury? Because I just texted in with our guy, Mike Conti down in Atlanta, who does Hawks pre- and post-game. And he's like, yeah, defensively wasn't super impressed. And so coming off the ACL, like, that's obviously going to be hard. Like, moving laterally is difficult as it is in the NBA, and coming off an ACL can be really tough. But also, like, when you're coming back off an ACL, there's a period of time where you can't really do a lot on a basketball court but shoot. So I'm hoping that he comes back with his jumper better, and once he gets the timing and stuff down and gets in a kind of a rhythm, like, can he be closer to a 40-point three-point shooter instead of a mid-30s guy? Because if he's that, and especially if he can figure out the defensive side, like, that'd be sick. And also, they don't need him to be a premier defender necessarily if he's a longer term fit here, right? You think of what you want them to be. Like, Sarr's going to be like way better defensively than anything he played with in Atlanta. Koulibaly way better than anything he played with defensively in Atlanta. Like, the hope is Carrington with his length, George with his length. Like, the guys that they've brought in, they want these long, rangy athletes, and Bey. And so just by, like, one scheme and a guy like Brian Keefe and his coaching ability, but I think more so personnel, if you have guys who are good rim protectors, you have guys that can bail you out a little bit, have guys that put good on-ball pressure at the point of attack, then your job as a help defender and as a rotator, and you just have a little more time, like a half second more time to do all that stuff. And, yeah, if you get caught with Saddiq Bey on a premier wing player, it's probably not going to go great, especially in that first year back coming off the injury. But who knows? He is big. He is strong. He's 6'7". Like, he mix it up as a rebounder pretty good. And ultimately, if he's just not a terrible defender and then he shoots 40% from three, like, that's a useful piece. And again, in the meantime, he's going to have the entire year, no pressure. You can get him back to absolute full health. And not that I expect him to be more than a rotational player in the long term, but in the short term, the upgrade, if you will, over Denny Avdia, which you use some of the cap space that you created by getting rid of Avdia, is he's not going to help you win games because you're trying to be as bad as possible. Because I saw another one besides Capture the Flag the other day that was good. Like Sag for the Flag or something like that. Sag for Flag, I think, as in like your record sags. Stink.
Yeah, I like Capture the Flag.
I like Capture the Flag better. Way better.
Yeah.
So
see if I can come up with another play on his name, and I don't know if it'll be just as good as Capture the Flag, but
Capture the Flag's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Like we no notes. We got it. We're good.
What if we win 6 games next year? 6 flags? That didn't hit.
No, that's good. That's good. I think if they win 6 games, we're gonna have some other problems though. Unless like everybody suffers season-ending injuries in training camp, and they literally just put out a team full of hardship contracts for 82 games, they better not win 6.
Yeah, that would be brutal.
You think they win more or less games than they did this year?
We won how many this year?
I think it was 16. I'm going with more.
I think less.
I just think from like a competitive standpoint, I mean, they spent half a year not being competitive.
And then we went on a super long losing streak.
Yeah. They won
16 games?
They won 15.
15.
It's 15 and 67.
I think we win more than 15, less than 20.
That feels, I'm going to say less than 22 for sure.
Okay.
Remember, I'm the idiot who last year thought they had a chance to be okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I thought Jordan Poole would not be a
Let me go in and clip this right now.
disaster. Yeah. We're gonna say between 17 and 22 games. That's the prediction for this.
So you're going 17-22.
17 to 22.
Okay.
What are you going? So if I say 22 and a half, then is the over under. You go more than 20, or if I split the difference, if I go 19 and a half. They win in more than 20 games or less.
Dang. And 20 will be right on.
That's why it's 19 and a half. If you go 20 or more or 19 or less.
This is a good line, Craig, but I
wonder what the Vegas line is for them right now.
I think I'm going to go with 20 games. I'm going to take the over. But again, I think under 22 though. So I think we won 20 games.
Their line in Vegas right now is 24 and a half. Wow.
Oh, hammer the under.
Yeah, I would say the under. The under feels like the right.
Hammer.
And never hammer anything gambling.
Yeah.
Never. Just because you're gonna wind up getting hammered. So
Every time.
There's that. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And coming up next, we don't listen to the advice of smart people. Nope, we dive into the YouTube comments. Oh boy, here we go. It is never read the comments on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. And it is there that you can leave, along with our page at Craig Hoffman or Hoffman W Sports for our women's sports content, your comments on our show, either live or the on-demand segments that we post up. And then put on my hazmat suit, and I dive into the comments, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's pick out some to respond to on the radio, and that's how we do this segment. Anthony? Anthony?
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
Question for you, Anthony Haney. Did the open not fire because we were having technical issues, or were we having operational error?
That was an operational error.
So that was your fault.
Yes.
Oh.
The thing is, I had it up.
Uh-huh.
I forgot to put these in programming because they were out of programming.
So it's Essex's fault because he was in there before you.
Or Denton's.
Or Denton's.
Yeah, one of theirs. Yeah.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
Don't like it. We're trying to do
out
our
of
jobs,
program.
boys.
Yeah.
Can you not make it more difficult? We make it as difficult on ourselves as we can. We're reading YouTube comments. It is emotionally damaging. Now we got to actually pay attention.
Yeah. I looked up and was like,
what's going on here?
because you were looking at me and I was looking at you, look at me, and I was like,
I was like, do you think I was?
okay.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. Yeah.
Okay. So there's there's that. Okay. Never read the comments. It's a segment where we do that. We read the comments that you leave at Craig Hoffman, at Hoffman W Sports, and at the Team 980. And we're going to start actually with some reaction to our WNBA Rookie of the Year comments and segment and discussion. And ultimately, Anthony, a math lesson, which is dangerous. But I feel confident in my ability to deliver this very small mathematical lesson. So a couple of comments kind of make this argument. So if you missed it, the original segment, Anthony and I both agreed that we would have Caitlin Clark as the WNBA Rookie of the Year in a close battle with Angel Reese. And one of the key statistics that we point to is Angel Reese's shooting percentage versus Clark, where Reese actually has the higher percentage. However, she's taking all twos and is also rebounding. Her rebound number is great, but she's rebounding a very high percent of her own misses. And Clark is taking a very high volume of threes. And when you account for that, which I'll just demonstrate more in a moment, Clark is clearly the more efficient scorer. Gino Hill, 9453, says, you don't play basketball. If you miss, aren't you supposed to try to get the ball, or you stand there and let someone else get it? She is a dog, and you know it. CC would do the same, but she mostly shoots threes, and she's not big enough to get her own boards. Denny, 19640, says, she's not supposed to retry. I'm confused. Has every rookie that has more points always won Rookie of the Year? The answer is no. And then M141Cage2, which sounds like an internet password. M141Cage2 says, wait, so you can shoot out a less percentage, but somehow you're shooting better? Because I'm cleaning up my mess, if there is one, just how? So to address the first two comments very directly, I don't know how else to say this other than a way that's going to sound snarky, and I apologize. But the point of shooting is to make a basket. The point is, no, it's not to get your own rebound. The point is to put the ball through the hoop and collect the 2 points and go back on defense. Because, yes, if you miss, the best thing you can do is get your own rebound. But there's no guarantee that you make the second shot. So what happens if you miss, get your own rebound, miss again, and then you don't get it? Well, you've got an offensive rebound. That's good. However, what's better, because you're on offense, is 2 points. Now, as to the shooting percentage thing, let's say, Anthony, I tell you someone makes 45% of their shots and another player makes 33% of their shots. Which player would you rather have, 45% or 33%?
45.
That could be very incorrect. Because what if I told you that player A, the 45% shooter, shot all twos, and the 33% shooter shot all threes. Well, let's do the math. Let's say they both take exactly 100 shots. 45% means they make 45 out of 100. All 2-pointers, that's 90 points, right? So far, so good on the math. So 90, that's the number you have to remember, Anthony. 90, you got it? Okay, 33% from 3 on 100 shots means you make 33 shots at 3 points each is 99 points. What was that number I told you to remember?
90.
Which one is bigger, 99 or 90?
99.
Yeah. So would you rather shoot 33% or 45%? 33% if they're all threes. That's how you shoot worse, but shoot better. Shot selection matters. Your shot diet matters. And the point of offense is to score points, not collect offensive rebounds. So yes, Reese's ability to offensive rebound is tremendous because it gives you an opportunity to score more points. However, I guarantee you if the Chicago Sky coaching staff was told Angel can get 3 less offensive rebounds per game and shoot 10% higher, they would take the 10% higher every single night. Because the whole point of getting the offensive rebound is to ultimately make a basket. And I just don't get why that's that. Like, people are telling on themselves to go out of their way, not to say like, hey, I value this. I think Angel's defense is worth it. Or the attitude she brings. There's a leadership quality. I don't like the way that Caitlin's body language is sometimes. It seems to have a negative effect on her teammates. None of that. Just arguing math when the math ain't mathin'. And trust me, on this show, we know about math that doesn't math sometimes. Unfortunate reality of our broadcast journalism existence. However, pretty confident in the math on this one, Anthony. And if you want to make a mathematical argument for Angel based off a different collection of numbers, there are arguments to be made, but not based off anything scoring adjacent, anything shooting adjacent. Just not possible.
And I think when we have the discussion about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, most of it is centered around the offensive side of the basketball. And again, I just feel as though Caitlin does a little bit more, like a lot of bit more. The demand, the player usage. And there was another article that came out earlier today. I looked at some of those numbers. I didn't necessarily know what to fully make of those numbers.
Yeah, I gotta look more in that article. ESPN put out an article. I remember reading the original version, being like, I don't really don't think this is actually a good use of the data.
Yeah.
Which sometimes happens, right? Like, data is ultimately numbers. It's on us to interpret that and understand what it means. Because again, the shooting percentage thing is a perfect example. Analytics is the worst. Like, okay, all analytics typically is just fancier numbers, right? Shooting percentage is basic. Affected shooting percentage. Now we're dealing with analytics. But really, shooting percentage isn't analytic. It's a number. It's data. And if you look at the data and you think that someone that's shooting 41% in Reese's case to Clark's 38.5%, 39%, and think that Reese is a better shooter based off that pure number, I mean, I guess you could say technically that's correct, that she makes a higher percentage of her shots, but that doesn't actually tell you a story about their scoring. It purely tells you on this very narrow scope who is making a higher percentage of their shots. Who is actually a more effective scorer is affected field goal percentage, where that percentage is weighted based off of the shots taken, or true shooting percentage, which also adds in free throws at a lower percentage than 2-point field goals because they're worth 1 point, not 2. But those numbers start to give you a better picture. It's the evolution in baseball from batting average to on base percentage to OPS to some of the other numbers that get used. And then if you want to put those into a formula and get WAR in baseball, wins over replacement or wins above replacement, VORP, victories over replacement, that is used sometimes in basketball. Those are more complex numbers that paint a bigger picture about who a player is. But even then, all these numbers are based. Now I'm on a full analytics rant, but I don't care. All those numbers are based off stats too, right? So if we look at Caitlin Clark's assist numbers, we've watched plenty of Fever games. Both of us have. How often does she hit a player perfectly in the pocket, wide open three, and that player misses?
Frequently.
Okay, so her assist numbers would be higher. Now, assist numbers, I assume, are a part of VORP, the victory over replacement, right? Does that VORP number account for the fact that her teammates missed? Probably not. Player efficiency rating, another one like that. Do they account for some of these things that happen in games? No, that's why you have to mix data and actual film analysis and understand what you're watching when you watch the game if you're a scout or an analyst or whatever. But they're also constantly evolving in the analytics world to try to make those numbers better. So there isn't a stat that exists that says potential assists, right? If Caitlin or any other player, Jordan Poole with the Wizards, like pick your player, men's or women's basketball, makes a pass, hits her shooter, they're wide open. Like, expected assists can, depending on which formula, because I'm sure teams have more advanced version, could just say, hey, you hit an open shooter, that shot should go in. That's +1 on the expected assist column. Other versions of that stat or similar stats might look at the player and where they are on the floor, and they have the basically the geographic data to say, you pass the ball, I'll use Wizards here. Jordan Poole drives, kicks the ball to Corey Kispert in the corner. Kispert is a 43% shooter from that spot, or a 48% shooter from that spot. So we're going to add 0.48 to the formula. Or we're going to say that was a corner 3, and now we're doing points expected off of assists, and we're going to do 0.48, because if he's shooting 48% times 3, whatever the hell that number is, I should have just done 50%. He's shooting 50%, so now it's a plus 1.5 points expected to Jordan Poole's expected points off assist number. And that's how, again, this is an extremely rudimentary, elementary version, but hopefully digestible for everyone listening as they drive through the hellacious NATO traffic that's taken over DC. That you can follow along without having to write out numbers on a map here. I hope that all made sense.
It made sense to me.
Too long, didn't read it. Numbers require context. The point of offense is to put the ball in the hoop. I wish we got more comments like this. Art Novak, 3259. I'd be shocked. Actually, this is not the one. I want the ones like Lucky Da Vinci, who says, Reese got the Rookie of the Year, but both nice. Okay. I disagree, but I acknowledge, I think Clark's the Rookie of the Year. Angel's having a phenomenal year. She's been the second best rookie, which is not something I thought would happen this year. But there was also this one, right? Art Novak, 3259. Sorry, Art, I actually don't like your comment. But I told you that on the internet, so you already know. I'd be shocked if Clark got the nomination. She definitely deserves it, but we all know there is politics involved. It's okay to go outside. I know it's hot outside. Maybe you go to a museum. They're lovely and air conditioned. But this constant, everyone thinking that it's all about politics. The people that vote on this stuff don't live online only in the YouTube comments. We dip into this for fun and have fun with it. But, Kareem Copeland, our buddy at the Washington Post, he works full-time covering women's basketball. He watches games and goes to them for a living. He interviews the players, the coaches. He has a sense of who's actually good because he has his own expertise and opinions, and he talks to people around the league. National writers that vote on this stuff, analysts that vote on this stuff, they actually know the game. They're doing this not based off narratives, not based off this. Is there human bias on some level? Of course. And maybe that goes to a style of play where someone might like Angel's style of play or Caitlin's style of play one over the other. Just like in MVP races, this is a tale as old as time in sports. But to think that this Rookie of the Year race is going to come down to politics when the people that work on that actually get votes, it's not a fan vote. The people that actually get votes do this for a living and take it seriously. No, that's not how this is working. This is not a Twitter poll. It's real people working. You can have faith in the process. Last but not least in this one, a palate cleanser, if you will, Anthony. Brad Palmer. We're going to make fun of Brad. Why? Because Brad deserves to be made fun of. And sometimes when we dive into the comments, we have to do this. Brad Palmer, 8473. Why the F do I keep seeing these people in my feed? No one outside of America gives an S about basketball in general, let alone the WNBA. All caps, who cares? To which I responded, and I don't do this very often, I certainly don't do that. I often type responses like this and then delete the name calling.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, Brad, it's because you keep commenting on them and feeding your algorithm, you absolute moron. If you don't want something to show up online, this is a free tip for everybody listening, watching, consuming this media in any audio, video, digital, or terrestrial platform. If you don't want something to keep showing up in your timeline, whether that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, don't engage with it. Liking it, disliking it, spending time watching. If you don't like WNBA content or NFL content or Major League Baseball content or whatever, the second it comes on your screen, swipe. Because it's going to be like, whoa, they don't like that. Let's not show them, because all these apps are built to keep you on the apps. That's how the algorithms work. So even if you don't like something, even if you don't comment something, but if you watch a high percent of something, it'll be like, wow, you really like that. I'm going to show you more. So if you take the time to comment about how much you don't care about any topic, then all it's going to do is give you more. So Brad, I'm so sorry that I had to explain to you how the internet works, but hopefully you know now, Brad cares enough to comment. Owning himself. Good job, Brad. All right. Dak, we did the all NFC East offense. This was a fun one. I enjoyed this back and forth with Jay-Sean Stanley, 83-97. Because we had Dak Prescott as the number one quarterback in the NFC East on Take Command. And Anthony, you and I talked about this as well. Jalen Hurts has accomplished more in less time than Prescott. How is Dakota Rain better? First of all, A+ Jay-Sean for using Dak's full name. We love the Dakota reference. Excellent work out of you. But two, when we do these rankings and these teams, we're not saying who has done more. That's actually not that hard to figure out. Like looking at a resume, especially based off winning, is pretty straightforward. The question is, if we were starting a team from scratch, who would we want? And the answer is Dak Prescott, because Prescott has a higher level that he can achieve as a quarterback. Jalen doesn't have as big of a tool bag. All the throws aren't available to him. He doesn't read certain parts of the field nearly as well. Obviously, Jalen does have the running tool in a way that Dak does not anymore post-ankle injury, and never was as good of a runner as Jalen is, of course. But I think you saw some of this last year. His team stopped playing simple coverages, and they just kind of lived with some of the running stuff. They goofed up the coverages. He had trouble reading it, and they took away some of those throws to the outside. They also started to blitz a lot, and Jalen didn't handle it particularly well. And so, well, yes, he has made an NFC or won an NFC title and made a Super Bowl, and Dak has flamed out in the playoffs. Game in, game out, it's very, very clear that Dak Prescott is the better quarterback if you don't look at stats, although there's plenty of statistics that also would lean towards Jalen, but you actually watch the tape and understand what you're watching. And Jay-Sean, it was really funny, Anthony, because he started to like really push back at first, and then he like basically called back in, if you will. I didn't respond to a couple of comments that he left, and then I scrolled again, and he was like, actually, I'm now reading more. I understand your point. I guess he just read again. I don't know. I don't know what changed between him trying to make the argument and then just agreeing.
That's what it takes sometimes, you know?
A little bit of patience?
A little patience, rereading something, taking your time, slowing down. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Last but not least, a couple of funny ones to end out. And then Joe Theismann coming up at 5 p.m. Boz the Rain Man 6654, Anthony, commented on one of our YouTube shorts where we were talking about the best, it was either offense or defense in the NFC East. And it was when you and I were talking about it. And the way we edited it was like, I asked the question, you said very quickly, like, I think it was the defense. You're like, I think it's the Cowboys. And then we edited it so that it said, I don't think I agree with that. And then I give my reasoning, because that's how we edited the short. We took a full radio segment and put it down to about 40 seconds. And this guy goes, man asked a question and let him say 2 words before the cutoff. You know it's edited, right? Why do people do this on the internet, Anthony? Why do we read why do I give them attention? Am I self-owning? Am I pulling a Brad right now?
I I guess not. I don't think so.
I don't think it's as bad as Brad.
Yeah.
But I'm pulling a Brad Light.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, never in life do you want to pull a Brad Light.
No.
And then there's comments like this one. Chad Bouchard, 2339, commented on one of our Take Command segments saying, Logan, my friend. Editor's note, I do not believe that Chad and Logan are friends. My friend, you keep using the wrong R and R. You said our QB can run this system. Well, instead of R rhymes with car bar. Hour, as what he means, rhymes with power hour. Logan has a great sense of humor. Good show, guys. I like Logan lives in the comments, which I think is a thing he does on Command Center that is very similar to this radio segment. The old hour R argument. Anthony. Is that actually a hard rule? Are those words actually pronounced differently? Or is that just how some people say them? Because I definitely would say, like, it's our show. Am I saying it wrong? Because I rhyme it with car and bar? Should I be saying our show?
I definitely do say our. But I do say some other words a little weird.
Next
I
thing
get looked at crazy.
Chad's going to be like, you're using the wrong there, and there.
Oh, man.
English is a funny language.
It is. It is very, very funny. I never noticed you said R.
Do I? I don't know. Now I'm going to be self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
Why did I read that comment? Chad wasn't very nice. All right, that's enough of Brad and Chad. It's time for Joe. Joe Theismann joins us next, talking about the Commanders here on the Team 980. That felt like an intentional choice in the Open, Anthony. You go back past 30 years, there's a couple quarterbacks that can more than deal with pressure, huh? Yeah. One of them joins us now. It is our pleasure to welcome back to the show the 1983 NFL MVP, Super Bowl champion, Joe Theismann is with us. Joe T, how we doing?
I'm good, Craig. It's good to catch up with you.
Always a pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure. I know you're doing some very fine golfing out west. So how you hitting them so far? That's of course the key question.
Yeah, so far so good. We just finished our morning round out here. Of course, it's the American Century Championship, which is fun. And matter of fact, today is the last opportunity for people to log on to our fantasy golf competition, which is ACCFantasyGolf.com. And you can look at the 5 categories of the players as they're broken down. If you win all of the 3 days and pick the right ones in that category, you get a $10,000 prize to donate to the charity of your choice. Plus, you get 2 tickets to come back here, and you can win every day, and you can change guys every day and gals. So it's just a great tournament, and Lake Tahoe is so beautiful, and it's not near as hot as what we've been dealing with in the DMV.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's been brutal out here. Who's the best golfer you've seen out there? I know Steph Curry's played it and won it a couple times. There's some really good golfers that are always out there. Who's the best golfer that you've played with or seen playing out there at the American Century?
Well, Tony Romo was out here, and Tony won it a couple years. Guy by the name of Marty Fish, great tennis player. Yep. He was another one. Jack Wagner, of course. All the people that follow acting know Jack. They're 3 of the really, really, really good ones. I mean, Tony will probably be in the hunt at the end. So will Marty. Marty lost out to Steph last year. It was really unfortunate. I mean, you hope people have some kind of respect for the game, but in Marty's backswing, somebody screamed and threw him off on the 18th hole, and that's the one that Steph basically made eagle on to win the tournament. But Marty would have won it. Had someone not, been stupid, for lack of a better term. I mean, you search around to be polite, but something like that happens, you don't need to be polite.
I do chuckle, though, Joe, because, Marty's a tennis player, and in tennis, it's the same thing. Like, during a serve, if the ball toss goes up and someone screams in the stands that you just let the ball drop, the umpire reprimands the person, everyone boos. It's a sport of silence. Golf, same thing. Steph would be like, I don't know, I got people yelling at me while I shoot all the time. Do you guys ever chuckle amongst athletes of the challenges different, or is it enough serious golfers that everyone's like, hey, we're here to respect the game. We're gonna respect golf as it is. Everyone please shut up during everyone's backswing. Well,
it's funny you say that, Craig, because we do respect the game, and everybody out here that plays, the gals and the guys absolutely love this game. I mean, we're passionate about it. But we do play in front of a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, our 17th hole out here, and you can watch this tournament on NBC, Peacock, and the Golf Channel starting tomorrow. So you get a chance to see the 17th hole, which is lined with people, and it's right on the lake, and there's tons of boats, and you've got music blaring, you've got people jumping up and down, and boats revving their engines, and it's not a quiet place. It's like the Phoenix Open.
Yeah.
It's that same hole like the Phoenix Open. It's just, everybody's getting rowdy and enjoying it. And I think it's brought another dimension to the game of golf where you just don't have to be stoic and silent and quiet. It's fun, but we do laugh about it. I mean, here we are. I played in front of 103,000 when we won the Super Bowl. You get on the tee and everybody goes, shh, and they hold signs up to be quiet. I started laughing.
Yeah, no, it's great. That 17th hole is where they typically have the basketball hoop, right, too, and Steph just drains shots every year.
Music. Yeah, we've got music. We've got basketball. People are throwing footballs.
They move people out of the way so Barkley doesn't hit them.
Charles has got an interesting proposition, Craig, on this one. They think, I think there's 90 participants this year in this tournament. They have the over and under on Charles finishing over or under 75th. Now, last year he finished 75th. The over and under last year was 70. So it'll be real interesting to see who wants to take a look at Sir Charles?
Well, if we know that one thing about Chuck, if he's got one thing that he likes more than golfing, it's gambling. So if you get to gamble on Chuck golfing, what could possibly be better?
I think he'll bet on himself.
Probably.
Last year.
There you go. We'll see what he can do. Again, that's all this week in the American Century. It's actually a genuinely, even if you're just kind of a more generic sports fan, you're not a huge golf guy. I'm not the world's biggest golf guy, but it is something I tend to flip on every single year just because it's a lot of fun seeing everybody compete out there. And Joe and everybody out there doing great work for charity as well. Joe, I do want to pick your brain, as Joe Theismann is our guest here on the Hoffman Show, on the current Commanders in a couple of different aspects. But I'd like to actually start by kind of getting a feel for where you are with the organization now. You're someone who's been around through times much worse than what we all expect the next couple of years to be in Washington. You've always been such a good representative and soldier for the organization. And I'm curious, as this new ownership group has gotten in with Josh and everybody in charge over there now, what your relationship has been like and kind of where you see yourself in this stage of your relationship with the team that you will forever be representing and bonded with.
Well, I feel like we have I feel like I've had an opportunity to be able to be around Josh, Mitch, and Dan and Adam, and really found a place in the organization as a friend of it, as an alumni, and they're embracing the alumni coming back, the guys that have played there before. I think that's wonderful. And to me, it's got a different feel to it. It's got a different vibe. I mean, we were losing so much. It's just become a very difficult place to be able to get excited about. Now, all of a sudden, we're, I think there's optimism, a lot of newness, a lot of optimism. And I'm curious to see exactly, what this team's going to be able to do on the field, because ultimately that's going to be it. But from my perspective, they've been wonderful to me, as Dan was. Dan was really, really great to me, and it's just unfortunate the way things went. We weren't able to win, and that's the bottom line. And things happened, and change happened. And I think what we're seeing, everybody's very excited and positive about. And they had to draft Jaden. If that was going to be one of the next questions, is I think we need the quarterback. And I was listening to a little bit of the promo and the build-up before we went on you and I were in our conversation. We're talking about the quarterbacks. I think there's been 35 since I got hurt or more that have actually started games for us. And you just can't win without consistency at that position. You can build around it, but if you don't have something to build with, it doesn't work. Consider it the axle of a wheel, and the spokes are everybody else. Without the axle, you don't have a chance.
Yeah, no, I totally. And I was going to ask you what you thought of Jaden, specifically what's going on with him right now. That's not really necessarily about him, but I'm so curious for your perspective on this. I'm sure you've seen the Brandon Ayuk story, and he puts up this photo of Commander's film on TikTok, and we know that he and Jaden are close. And it just gets to a point where it's like, hey, we understand that the contract negotiations are messy, and if Brandon Ayuk's got to do what he's got to do to try to have leverage on the 49ers, that's one thing, but bringing Jaden Daniels and another organization into it is another. I'm curious how you would have handled it if you were in Jaden's shoes as a young player, and how maybe that would be different if you were an older player, like if one of your friends all of a sudden roped you into their contract negotiations, as a rookie like Jaden is, not having even taken a training camp snap yet, and then maybe later in your career, how you would have been able to step up and potentially handle that differently, if there's any difference at all.
Well, it really doesn't matter what level of competition you play in and what sport you play in. You never want to share that information with anybody else. It's what goes on in your house stays in your house. And that's just the way it is. And I think Jaden has learned a lesson from this. I think he's learned that he's jumped into a pit of piranhas, that no matter what you do, you're going to be scrutinized, you're going to be analyzed, you're going to be criticized. I think, for him, it probably turned out to be something very positive, because it's a great lesson to learn, that you just, you do your job. And, I doubt very seriously if Adam Peters is going to sit down with Jaden Daniels and say, hey, do you think we ought to sign Ayuk? Because that's the job of the general manager. That's the job of the coaching staff. The job of the quarterback, the job of the player is to go out and play. Now, if you're friends, that's great. But let's just break down the wide receiver position. I think our wide receiver position is pretty darn good, first of all. During the course of a game, if let's say Terry McLaurin's been a Pro Bowler for the last couple of years, 3 years. So if I want to try and get the ball to Terry because he's really dynamic, defenses are going to know that. And they're going to make you go someplace else. Well, it's the same thing with any receiver. If you can bring in a really, really great receiver, but are you going to be able to get that person the ball? We've seen time and time again where receivers wind up going to a different team and the offense doesn't suit them. Or everybody says, hey, you're really good. We're just going to take you out of the game. And then you wonder, well, why do we pay this much money for this person? Because he can't make plays. It's not his fault, but you still committed all the dollars. I think it's going to be a lesson learned by Jaden. And like I said, I personally feel like our wide receiver position is not one that's in desperate need. It just so happens that these two young men are friends. And, Washington wound up on the radar.
Joe Theismann with us for another minute here on the Hoffman Show. Joe, how this is obviously the start of what we hope to see a build towards what you guys had, which was a long window of truly championship level possibilities, right? Like that title window was open for you guys long enough to win 3 Super Bowls back in the day, ultimately with 3 different quarterbacks. But like the talent was so good and so deep with Joe and what Bobby Bethard built that there is a long dynastic type of feel to that era of Washington football. And as much as you can recreate that in the salary cap era, et cetera, that is what Adam and Dan are trying to create eventually here. With that, though, this is year one. How good do you think this team can be in year one? And I know you're a competitor and you still, hey, this is us. This is you still feel a part of the organization because you are when you made the kind of history you've had. That's totally fair. How much does it matter to you how good they are in year one?
It matters to me. It matters to me in year one. It matters to me in year 10. I was a Washington Redskin. Now we're the Washington Commanders, and that's what the organization is called. Now we're all of us that have been former players are part of the organization in one way or another because of our association. But to me, to say how they're going to do is, I think, a very difficult thing to do. If somebody says, you're going to hear people say, well, I think they can win 4 games. I think they can win 6 games. I think they can win 8 games. You don't know who's going to be healthy. You don't know how well the young quarterback is going to respond. You don't know if you're going to be able to put together the offense and the defense and the adjustments that are going to be made in such a short period of time. Remember, Craig, these guys don't even get a chance to really work together. You've got hardly any days in training camp. You're never going to see anybody get hit during the preseason. So the first time that they're really going to be involved and have any kind of contact is for the opening game. Jaden Daniels he isn't and shouldn't play in the preseason. So if he isn't going to play in the preseason, how are we going to be able to understand how good he is when he's got people around his feet? And it's a different world. It's a different world than college football. I know he's a Heisman Trophy winner. I've watched him work. I've been at practice. I've sat and visited with him. I like him a lot. But our business is a tough business to learn. And that's the biggest thing that we're going to have to take a look at. How well will this team, how soon will they be able to assimilate the teachings of the new coaching staff and putting the players into place to be able to give them a chance to be able to flourish and be successful? That's going to be the hardest thing to be able to predict, is how soon we'll be able to get it going. I hope soon. We certainly have veterans. If we're looking at opening day, there could be as many as 10 new faces on that football field.
Oh, at least.
This is what I want to see about this football. I want to see them play hard. I want to see them score points. And I want to see him continue to go at it for 60 solid minutes. And then whatever happens is going to happen. And that's something that we'll be able to really get proud of. And then I believe the wins will come after that.
Joe, I'd be remiss if I didn't follow up real quick on what you said about preseason. When you say you don't think he'll play in preseason, is that just a reflection of what a lot of the coaches around the league do now? And when you say should not, is that just to avoid the injury risk? Or is where is that comment coming from?
I don't think. Well, the second part of that statement that you just made is, why would you put your starting quarterback out there? Let's say you got your starting offensive line. They'll probably play a series, maybe. So you give him a little chance to get his feet a little bit wet. But you don't want him You don't want to risk him out there
Sure.
in a preseason game.
Well, I guess that's like a fun philosophical thing, right? Is like how risky is it from like the second anyone gets hurt, you're going to get crushed in the press, but also if your team comes out and is not prepared, you're also going to get crushed. So this I think is the thing that coaches around the league are struggling with. And you know, obviously you played in a different era where you did play in the preseason more and have that experience. You can certainly speak to that in a way that I can't. But that's something as an analyst I've always struggled with, is that balance between, you know, conservatism, you know, in terms of injury mitigation risk, and the, you know, aggression of trying to be ready for the season by making sure that guys get enough reps.
Craig, they would tear Dan apart if Jaden got. They would.
You're not wrong. You're 1,000% not wrong.
So where's your risk reward? You give them a chance to grow into the position, and this is going to be with every rookie quarterback that starts. Every and any rookie quarterback that starts. I would be surprised if you see them more than a series, possibly two in the preseasons. You know they're not going to play in the third for sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's a big long period of time before the opener too, as far as that goes. You know, do you really risk them out there in the second game? And the other part of it is how am I going to be able to evaluate the guys that I'm looking at to fill out the roster if I don't have them out on the field? And if I put the guys that don't have experience out there with him, I go at the risk of getting him killed. So you know, it's sort of a quandary, but in my mind, it's no question a decision that I don't take the chance of putting him out on that football field and having something happen to him in the preseason. And I think it's absolutely nuts. And I know that the league is driven by money, but I think it's nuts that you go to 18 games. Do you know how many quarterbacks started last year, Greg?
Like started all 17? It couldn't have been more than.
How many quarterbacks played?
Oh, how many total wound up? Let's see, 32 teams, probably 56, something like that.
How about 65?
65? Wow.
I believe the number is 65, give or take. So you know, you want to be able to. How many guys played the entire season without missing time?
Yeah, not many.
So I mean, so now all of a sudden you go to 18. You go to 18 regular season, 2 preseason. Number one, as a coach, how do you evaluate the players on the field if you can't see them in a uniform with pads on? You're going to evaluate them on T-shirts and shorts? We've seen a lot of great players in T-shirts and shorts and can't play the game. So, to me, you're going to defeat the purpose of having a good, solid football team and giving the coaches and the organization, the general managers, a chance to evaluate the players that they bring in, the free agents, the rookies, the draft choices. You're not going to get a chance to do it. So to clarify in Jaden's case, I wouldn't play him. Mm-hmm. But then you have to look at the first 2 or 3 regular season games and say, you know what? They've got to be – they're sort of glorified preseason games because now it starts. Yeah. And then, we open in Tampa. What do you think the temperature's going to be like in Tampa the first week of September? Got a chance of being really, really hot. We're getting a taste of it up in the D.C. area right now. So you go down there. You're starting offensive line, you're starting defensive line, your running backs. They have, believe me, conditioning in a game situation is entirely different than conditioning when it comes to mini camps, training camps, OTAs, and things of that nature. Because now you're going to go 60 minutes. You're not going to go 2, 3 plays, 5 plays, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. A 15-minute segment. You're going to go full out, and that's that's another one of the challenges you face is, how are you going to be able to keep everybody healthy? But no. I would not, in Jaden's case, it would be wonderful if you could play him and there was time for him to, if something happened, to come back, but you don't have the time. You really don't, especially in our case.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And earlier in the answer when you talked about your logic of why you do that, I think it makes perfect sense, and it's inarguable when you put it that way. And I think it's also why teams love these joint practices, is at least you get a chance to see kind of a mix of you practicing against your own guys versus someone else. And luckily the Commanders have a couple of those on the schedule. Joe, one more time real quick, where can folks go if they want to participate and everything this weekend with what you're doing with the American Century?
Check it out today. It's ACCFantasyGolf.com. Log on. The rules will all be explained. We're broken down into 5 categories based upon our ability to play the game. I'm actually in the middle category. I would like to stay in category 3. But it's a lot of fun, and it's like any fantasy baseball, fantasy football, whatever it is. It's a chance for people to really get to see some great golf. I'm telling you, you'll see some great golf, see a whole lot of wonderful people. And the thing that I love being here, it's like being at a Pro Bowl. You're around the best in the business, whether it's the entertainment industry, the music industry, the athletic world. You get to meet some really wonderful, incredible people. And so I appreciate American Century, the championship, appreciate NBC, Peacock, and the Golf Channel giving us a chance to show our wares.
Joe, always a pleasure, and I'll see you in a couple weeks when you're back here in the swampy swamps of Ashburn.
Thanks, Craig. Take care. Bye-bye.
It's Joe Theismann, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show. Of course, the Washington Ring of Honor member, 1983 NFL MVP, Super Bowl champion, Joe T with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, have we seen Lynnell yet? Do we actually know that Lynnell Willingham is in the building?
I have not laid eyes on Lynnell, but I would assume he's around the corner. So I'll go, peek.
Well, we'll go. We're scheduled to have Lynnell.
Yes.
If we don't have a backup plan. So we're going to get chaos next. Just find out if it's the Lynnell version or the Hoffman Show unscripted version. Don't go anywhere here on the Team 980. Thanks again to Joe Theismann for joining us on the Hoffman Show. We're on Team 980, of course, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And if you miss any part of the show, you can always check out the Hoffman Show podcast. Just search the Hoffman Show in your favorite podcast app. Also, we take this time to remind you that our off-season coverage of the Commanders is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Anthony, is there any other housekeeping/time killing we can do while we wait for Lynnell to walk in the room?
Yes.
What else we got?
I have an idea.
You have an idea?
So what is today, Craig?
Today is July 11th, which, when abbreviated, written down, is 7-Eleven. So it's Free Slurpee Day at 7-Eleven. And now, before the folks at 7-Eleven get excited about free advertising on the radio, Anthony, how has your pursuit of free Slurpees gone so far today?
Mine has gone terrible, man. Terrible. I drove to 2 different 7-Elevens with the hope of getting a free Slurpee. I'm talking about I'm walking in there cheerful, I'm smiling left to right. I talked to the cashier. I'm saying, hey, where's the cups? I'm trying to get a free Slurpee. He points me to the back. I get to the back. There's a line of people already there, maybe like 5 or 6 people. And to all of our dismay, the machines were not working. So I kept my cup. I proceeded to go to another 7-Eleven in the D.C. area. And again, to my dismay, no
Slurpee.
Yeah, no Slurpees. The machines were broken. So what I've come to realize is I just need to wait till I get off, go out to Maryland, because I know the one in Bethesda where I live will definitely be working. And if that one's not working, Craig, you will get a voice note from me, and I think I'll be a little angry. I think so.
I think if you don't get a Slurpee, you rightfully be upset.
Because that's 3.
Yeah, that would be the old 0 for 3. We can't be doing that. Lynnell has made his way in. You had to fight with the trains, which we understand.
It's an epidemic going around the country right now. I've seen several posts of out-of-service slushy Slurpee machines at 7-Elevens.
Oh,
so 7-Eleven,
no.
Step your damn game up because it's 7-Eleven day.
It
can't
is.
offer free stuff. It's honestly the ghettoest thing I've ever seen. It's very on brand for 7-Eleven, actually.
Well, we're not going to go too hard at any potential company that could sponsor.
I understand.
I mean, we have an ongoing joke that certain segments are brought to you by
Nobody.
So we're not gonna hate on anybody that could potentially be a sponsor, Lynnell.
It's no hate; it's constructive criticism.
Yeah, we just need to do better on the old Slurpee machine. It's kind of like the ongoing, hey, did somebody say McDonald's? Sure did. They also said that the shake machine's broken.
Yeah,
because that's tends to be what happens.
That's what happens. That is
yeah. How are you?
Talk with Joe.
Oh, thanks. You were listening on the old Odyssey app? Got the little alert?
Able to catch a little bit.
Nice. Love that. Am I wearing the headphones that you normally wear?
But hey, it is what it is. It's July, it's 7-Eleven.
It is 7-Eleven. Because here's the problem, Lynnell, is my headphones went missing out of my locker yesterday. So I wasn't ready. At first, I was like, you want to know what? This is probably my fault. I probably put them somewhere wrong.
Well,
I might have put them in my car. But then I checked my car. I checked every other studio here. I definitively remember getting my headphones and putting them away a couple of days ago. My headphones disappeared out of my locker.
If there's, and this quickly before we get on track, the guy that was excited to say hi to me on the train, if you're listening on the Odyssey app, I apologize. And Craig Hoffman is about your height, as you asked. Someone that randomly asks, "Are you he walks on and goes, "Are you the radio guy?" And mind you, it's rush hour on the train, so I'm trying to be discreet. I have my little moments.
This is the beauty of radio, is typically you can go places and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Now, they might listen to you.
Because I'm on with you, and our faces are very
This is true.
Very
I
on.
have helped the. Well, you also do television, which
Well, for sure,
does contribute.
Well,
but I'd like
yeah.
to think it all comes from the fine YouTube stream / our on-demand content that thousands and thousands of people view.
We can give the credit to the YouTube stream, but I'm sorry about that. I was kind of annoyed with the guy because it was like, dude, it's rush hour. You're the radio guy. He literally, as soon as he walked on the car, I'm not that recognizable.
You should have just like give him the
me?
Yeah, who's that guy? That's that weird guy talking about.
Yeah, but then he kept talking to me, and I was.
You just kind of be like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm actually on my way to do a show right now.
And he was so intrigued by your measurables.
He wanted to know what, like how big and.
He said, "Is Craig Hoffman really that tall?" I said, "What?"
What do you mean by that tall? It depends. Like how tall do people think I am?
I don't. Maybe it's something to go to social media with. How tall
That's actually a funny.
do you think Craig Hoffman is?
I'm gonna actually tweet that out right now because I've talked about it on the show before. Obviously there is a correct answer, but
For sure, everyone's got a number.
that's.
But that was my adventure.
I'm going to tweet that. Remind me in the break if I don't remember.
For sure.
I was going to try to do it right now, but I don't feel like I can multitask. My ADD is too strong.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple of different places we can go with our.
I was going to say because
weekly chat.
Unfortunately because of the delays and you're getting here, I have no idea what you want to talk about.
We have radio host sport telepathy. So there are a couple of things that I know me and you both would love to chime in on.
Okay.
One. Last night, Summer League game number 2 for Bronny, and then the Wizards. Big signing of Saddiq Bey. I don't know how much you've gotten into that.
We
yet.
talked about Bey a little bit. I did not watch the Bronny last night. We were watching some Hard Knocks, and then
that's good content.
I was watching the Copa America semifinal between Uruguay and Colombia, which was the advertised rock fight that I told everybody it would be. Those two, they just
running up and down,
just chaos.
Yeah.
Like. CONCACAF is the North American and CONMEBOL is the South American region of FIFA, and both of them just play outside of Brazil. It's like we are beautiful, we are Brazil. Look at us dance and play soccer at the same time, seemingly simultaneously. Everyone else is like boxing and playing soccer at the same time,
kicking and tripping and slide tackling.
Uruguay is as guilty of that as any nation. And again, we were saying yesterday, the saying is like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Mm-hmm. And like, honestly, in this particular case, I hate the game. I hate soccer played that way. That's like so violent is like a little too strong, but like only a little.
It's played with passion.
But it's the physicality that's like, and a little bit of dirtiness where it's like, someone's going to get slide tackled from behind.
Well, that's always
people are
going
to try to be, there's, in basketball or hockey, you might call it like goonery. In soccer, they call it bleephousery. If you catch my drift.
Yeah. Caught your drift all the way.
Yeah. So the housery is just at an all-time high. And like Uruguay does so much of it that I actually respect it, even though I hate
they are almost.
Yeah. It's like they just play true to their identity, which is we're going to bleep house a lot.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get under your skin. It's probably going to work. Unfortunately for them last night, though, Colombia was able to withstand, and ultimately they move on to the final to face Leo Messi and Argentina this weekend. So Sunday should be a fun soccer day. You got Spain, England in the Euro final, and then you got Copa America final at night.
Elsewhere in international sports,
yes,
USA basketball last night I thought was pretty intriguing. It's always fun when you, especially this year with the collection of talent. I don't think we've ever seen LeBron and Steph on the same team. And last night, my favorite, the guy who probably raised his stock the most this year, Anthony Edwards, was great. Was as advertised, was a spark for Team USA as soon as he came off the bench. It was cool to watch, but it also reminded me just how different the international FIBA ball is in terms of like foul calls. Like Joel Embiid had a real difficult time. He ended up fouling out early third quarter because he couldn't stop hacking. But it was interesting. We were talking about it actually yesterday in between one of the breaks with Russell about what starting five they would roll out. And it makes it easier because KD doesn't play.
Oh, yeah, KD was out last night.
But you called it, Coach Kerr Hoffman. You said Drew Holiday. What about sliding Drew Holiday in the lineup to give you some defense? And they did exactly that. I thought it worked well.
You don't need 5 scorers at once.
No.
Like, you just move some guys around, and, like, you need some guys that are ball movers. And, like, Kerr understands that as well as anybody. Like, you need some guys that are okay not having the ball, will play hard defensively, will move the ball and make the right play on offense. And I think especially if Steph's your starting point guard, and like, again, Steve knows this as well as anybody. Right. Yeah, me and first name basis, Steve Kerr. Kerr knows this. Kerr knows this as well as anybody. Like, if Steph's your starting point guard, you've got a little bit of a defense. Like, Steph's a way better defender than he was earlier in his career, and maybe, I think, even still better than he is reputationally. But, like, he's not an elite one-on-one defender. Yeah. So if you have some of these opposing guards that you want to just bite the head off of the snake, or whatever the saying is, you want to have good defense at the point of attack. Well, who better in the entire world than Drew Holiday? Right. So you put those two in the backcourt together. Know that Edwards is going to come in off the bench and be a guy you can run offense through. Like, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, it was cool to watch.
So, slow start for USA last night, but they sure as hell got it together against a Canada team that I don't know if they're the favorites for the silver medal, but like they're in a group of like
France will have something to say.
Yeah, I would say like Canada, France, Serbia are probably the three best next teams, and they're kind of in a tier. Spain maybe is still in that tier, like on their own. So behind the USA. So tough start, but they got it together in a pretty convincing win. All in all, we can definitely talk about the Saddiq Bey thing, and we'll see what else is rummaging around in the take bucket that is Lynnell's brain.
The take bucket, I like that.
The take bucket. That actually be a fun segment for you. You should start doing that on Overtime. You should just like write up a couple of your like kind of keywords, if you will.
Yeah.
And then just pick one out of a hat and be like, all right, we're ranting on this.
The take bucket.
That's the take bucket. I have a funny story for you in the break. I might tell it on the air too next. But we need to take a break, and then we'll come back with something out of Lynnell's take bucket next. It's Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. If you missed any part of the show, including our conversation back from 5 o'clock with Joe Theismann, make sure you check the Hoffman Show podcast wherever you get yours. Lynnell Willingham is here for a few more minutes, and then he's over on 106.7 The Fan tonight for overtime. We're talking U.S. soccer's big coaching decision coming up at 6 p.m. with one of the Athletics' top insiders, Jeff Reuter, will join us. But, Lynnell, you also, I think, have a very similar view of the Saddiq Bey signing for the Wizards as I do. When you saw that move come through, what went through your mind?
I said, I was literally, my initial reaction is, because it seemed like they were done making moves in terms of just signing guys outright. I thought a Tyus Jones signing trade was something that was still a possibility. We've been on Kuz watch for the last 12 months.
Still
it feels
a lot of noise about Sacramento with him.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought if I was going to get a Woj alert at 7 o'clock, around 7 o'clock last night, it'd be that. But it ended up being Saddiq Bey. I'm a huge fan of it. We were saying this in the break, like getting guys from the area to come back here is like something that just because it's not Kevin Durant doesn't mean it's not important to me. I think it's huge. I think it's something that, maybe inspires young kids in the area to, hey, we got kids playing on my local basketball team, our local professional basketball team that actually are from here. It feels like for years, as long as I've been rooting for the team, there hasn't been homegrown talent on the Wizards. Roger Mason was probably like the closest thing we got.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't think I've paid attention to a lot, probably in part because you just don't have to. I mean, obviously, there was a couple years ago, who was it that was from Baltimore that was here for a hot second?
Will Barton.
Yeah, that's right, Barton.
Will Barton,
that didn't go well. Whoopsie daisies. No. But yeah, no, Barton and Baltimore, the Baltimore DC thing always is funny. Baltimore's a part of the DMV when it's convenient for the conversation and otherwise.
You hit it right on the head when it's convenient for the conversation.
That's what it is.
Perfect.
That's what it is. Oh yeah, no, Baltimore, DC. You ask a DC person about Baltimore, it's like, I'm sorry, what city?
Yeah.
How do you get there? They want to be included with us?
Do you go by plane?
Yeah, no. You go by the BW Parkway, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So I is it that big of a deal? No. I do think the basketball culture here, though, and it does in
That's
some,
the type of dude I want, yeah.
in some kind of way, though, speaks to a style of play and kind of the way that basketball is played in the DMV that fits what Will Dawkins is trying to bring. And so it's not so much geographical as much as it is coincidental, but there is a little bit of causation, not just correlation, if you will. I think the bigger thing, though, is Saddiq Bey goes into some of the cap space that you get by trading Deni Avdija. There's not a lot. They're pretty hard pressed against that first apron.
Yeah.
So they're about to be hard capped, but they're able to get this deal done. And obviously the Valanciunas trade, et cetera, et cetera. Although that one goes as part of a trade exception that was expiring. All of this just points to the general competency and chess that Will Dawkins and Michael Winger are playing, where it's like, okay, if we do this thing, then we can do this other thing. That allows us, it opens the doors. Right. And trading Avdija, would I rather have Avdija or Saddiq Bey? I would rather have Avdija. I think it's fairly close when they're both healthy, but I think their career trajectories have gone in opposite directions, unfortunately. And so what the Wizards have done is buy low on Saddiq Bey, and especially low because he's going to miss the entire season coming off that ACL. But is there upside play? For sure, and I'd much rather take the upside swing on Saddiq Bey. By the way, not have Deni Avdija accidentally win me a couple of games in 2024 when I'm trying to tank for Cooper Flagg, and have all of the other stuff that came back with Deni Avdija. So that collection versus just one Deni for the long term for what this team is trying to do on this team's timeline, it's a no-brainer. And there might even be more to come because those 2 seconds and the 2029 pick, who says that they ultimately make those picks? That is in the war chest of assets that hopefully is a part of a larger trade down the road.
Yeah, and after seeing Cooper Flagg the other time, all right, dude, I don't ever remember watching a high schooler. It almost made me think, well, damn, maybe they should just lift the rule and let him come out. He should have been able to come out this past year. He would literally play right now and be an impact player.
Oh, he would.
He's legit.
And the number of guys that is true for in the last 25 years is LeBron, I mean, I think
King.
if Durant came out of high school, like he probably would have figured it out pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not like he was not skinny when he came into the league.
Right. Zion probably would have.
Zion could have come straight to the league. The year at Duke, benefits him some, hurts him in other ways. So, like, it's a very small list, and Cooper Flagg is 1,000% on it. And I don't know as a rookie how many dudes outside of LeBron would be better at 18 years old in the NBA than what Cooper Flagg looks like he would be. Like,
I'm amazed
he
by
is
it.
that much of, I mean, obviously Wemby, but
Yes.
like,
oh well, the future is what I call it.
the fact that we're having a Cooper Flagg, like, is he in the conversation with Wemby conversation is kind of the point in itself. Even if I think we'd all take Wemby.
Oh, of course,
obviously over Cooper Flagg.
But Cooper's.
But you'd be happy getting the second pick there.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where if you ever been like an AAU tournament and you see the row of coaches just sitting there and a guy does something and you turn your head and you just shake your head and go, like, no way. Like, that's how I feel about everything when it comes to Cooper Flagg. People are so quick to try and rush and make comparisons to what his pro comp would be because that's what we do. I think Cooper Flagg is just Cooper Flagg right now. He's got a blend of like 6 different guys in his bag, and I think mentality-wise, that's what I think may set him apart. Like, he ain't scared.
You want to know who he actually
put it?
The thinking about, and granted, I have not watched a ton of Cooper Flagg, but one guy, like a piece of that puzzle, is actually Tatum. Like, Tatum is a guy who is just bigger than you think.
Yeah,
like
right.
You watch him play, and did you see the team picture? The Team USA picture?
Yes.
How jacked Jason Tatum is. You're like, he's the biggest. Like, he outside of Joel Embiid, he's the biggest dude out there, like shoulders wise. And so you watch him play and you start to watch him move people and you're like, oh yeah, no, that really shows up on the court. And he's so freaking long, and yet his handle is so good that his ability to just like kind of, he's not the most athletic, but he's pretty athletic. He's got a great shot. Like, that's kind of, I think, a big part of what I've seen from Flagg is like the ability to just shoulder off someone. And he doesn't even have his man body yet. So like, what happens when he gets in,
a college weight training program?
Yeah,
How
college,
about that?
nevertheless,
like,
pro.
So
it's
he's gonna be amazing, and he's got
a lot of fun.
Defensive instincts, not as just a shot blocker, but like getting his hand in passing lanes. There was a player surfacing on Twitter. Our guy Ben Golliver from the Post was out there in Vegas for that scrimmage, and there's a play where he stunts and then gets back and gets the steal because the stunt worked. Like the kid can play, man. I think he's
great instincts.
He's got a real good chance to be good right away.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to see the Wizards lose a ton of games and get our hopes up, and then maybe for once
just don't Detroit Piston us
come through. By the way, Golliver on the show with us after that scrimmage the other day. So if you want to
get it from the horse's mouth,
if you want to go in the Hoffman Show podcast feed and get that, it is definitely worth it. Tim Bontemps was on with us yesterday from Vegas as well, so we've had everything covered with USA basketball. Lynnell, tonight 6:30 on Overtime. Anything in particular that you would like to tell the people that they can find?
A couple different things. I'm annoyed at this narrative. Maybe we could talk about this. Well, I guess we can't because I have to go. But
yeah, you have a show in 30 minutes. Jaylen
Brown should 100% be the replacement. Don't know why Derek White was instead of him. So there's that. He's the clear better basketball player. I'm tired of the politics with USA basketball. Just put the best players on the team and see what happens.
We'll yell at each other in the break and get out of our systems. Lynnell Willingham will yell about it tonight, 106.7 The Fan. Of course, you can listen to it on the free Odyssey app as well. Appreciate you, sir.
All righty, my man.
Jeff Reuter from The Athletic joins us talking U.S. soccer's next steps now that they fired Greg Berhalter next. All right, final hour of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And our top story of the day, well, really it was the top story yesterday, broke halfway through our show, is that Greg Berhalter is out as the U.S. men's national team coach. They've already started their search. The biggest names, in fact, already apparently said no, so that's delightful. But for more insight on why ultimately Berhalter is out, where U.S. soccer goes from here, and what the folks who hired him again last time after he was out of contract have learned in making this decision to hire someone else, we bring in Jeff Ruder from The Athletic. Jeff, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with kind of now with the benefit of not feeling like we're in the middle of a breaking news story, which is where we were exactly 24 hours ago. Like ultimately, what's the reason why U.S. soccer pulls the plug now? The Copa America loss is a huge part of it, but what culmination of events leads to Greg Berhalter being fired by U.S. soccer, 2 years before we host the World Cup here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is just when you bring back an international manager, this is very different than, club soccer, whether we're talking about DC United or Manchester United, where it's a lot more about process, right? But when you bring back an international manager for a second World Cup cycle, you go from being able to call it a process or, a program that's trying to grow and an overall trust process, that sort of thing. And it becomes a result-based job. Either you won, you had improved over your performances 4 years ago, or you did not. And I think that the Copa America performance obviously speaks for itself. Getting grouped in a group against Panama, Bolivia, and Uruguay is not what U.S. soccer would have expected, or what we on the outside of the team would expect for that team to do in a vacuum. But it's also the fact that you couldn't point to measurable growth for several players who had become regulars under Berhalter, whether we're talking about midfielders, we're talking about attackers, the defense, Matt Turner and goal, across the board. It got to a point where 4 years ago we were talking about the potential of this group, and maybe some of these players like Gio Reyna and Yunus Musa and Chris Richards were rushed into big roles too soon or earlier than necessary, where they just didn't have as much room to develop once they were embedded into it, or you weren't able to turn over from a more veteran option to them. But the reality is this team does not look any better than it was 4 years ago. It doesn't look any better than it was 2 years ago. And if anything, it looks a lot worse just in terms of quality of play. So there just weren't really enough pieces of evidence to justify retaining him for 2026. And now, as you're already alluding to, it's about making hopeful calls that someone wants this job right now for the next 2 years.
So my big thing, Jeff, for the last 2 years, as someone who actually does talk about soccer on the radio, and much of my soccer talk has been screaming about Greg Berhalter whenever the opportunity presents itself, and boy, were there opportunities, is that this seemed so obvious. That it was so surprising with Matt Crocker coming in to be the managing director, the technical director of U.S. Soccer over the men's program after the World Cup. Like, Greg Berhalter was the same guy the whole time. And I saw that Crocker gave some remarks yesterday, and he seems to be in a very different place now than when he rehired Berhalter the first time around. So ultimately, what has Crocker and company learned that they are looking for something different than when they were looking for when they rehired Berhalter, whatever number of months ago that was at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I think that they're just pointing to results, and they're trying to hide behind them and just say like, well, but to your point, that's worrying in its own right, because if you're just going to say he didn't win, so we're firing, like, okay, that's great. Like, I mean, that's why most national teams make changes. But have you learned anything that suggests that you're in a better spot to execute this coaching search than we were 2 years ago? And I completely agree with you. This is not just an isolated Greg Berhalter coached the team poorly and therefore, right? I mean, the idea is there was evidence from Qatar that you had questions to ask about how he was managing the locker room, with the Gio Reyna situation as the most prominent example. But are you actually clear on what that criteria is? They claim they are. They claim that they are ready to look at that criteria. But they're not saying really what that was. They're just saying that, they're striving to punch above their weight rather than meet expectations at every single turn, that they're looking to take the progress by young players that were young 4 years ago and get them to push forward, right? But the reality is, they're not really specifying that they're looking to be more proactive in terms of scoring goals rather than responding, only scoring 2 goals in 3 group stage games, or three goals, in 3 group stage games is not often the recipe for success over the duration of a knockout stage. It's not necessarily saying that defensively they needed to be better, that they needed to make sure that they weren't having silly red cards or conceding soft goals, right? We're not getting any of that information that can kind of give us a sense of they're looking to be a team that has 60% possession, is creating chances left, right, and center. They're looking to be a fortified bedrock team where then they are, advancing and scoring their goals on counter-attacking situations while letting the opponent tire themselves out on the ball. We unfortunately don't really know that just yet, which frankly gives a lot of reason to be skeptical and concerned about the broader ideology, or perhaps lack thereof, around this program right now.
Jeff Reuter of The Athletic is with us here on the Hoffman Show. I've got this quote in front of me that was transcribed by Henry Bushnell from Yahoo. I'm sure you know from the soccer world. And so Henry asked Matt Crocker about last year's search and how this one would be different. And I'm just going to read this. I apologize to you for the length of this, Jeff, but and for the audience to just have the full context here. Crocker said, I think I'm 12 months into the program now. I've been in the environment. I think I'm a lot clearer and a lot more confident in what I see. And also doing the reviews, both with Greg and with Vlatko. Vlatko, of course, Vlatko Andonovski, the former U.S. women's national team coach, who he also fired. I'm a lot clearer on what I think we need going forward. So I think now I'm in a better place to have much more of a targeted search where I'll be more inclined to go hard and go early with specific candidates that I feel meet the criteria that we're looking for. So I think that can speed up the process in one way. But like I mentioned, I'm a lot more confident in exactly what we need now and where we are with the programs because I've seen it firsthand, end quote. So my follow-up to what you just talked about, Jeff, is they seem to, like you said, know what those things are, even if they won't tell us outwardly. If you were doing this as someone who covers the sport and has seen success for international programs in other places, what would be those things, and who are some of the names that immediately pop to mind for you?
Yeah, I think that, when you think about that Crocker quote, and like you said, it's not showing his hand in terms of how he wants his team to play, but the reality is you need to have that identity and you need to not be ashamed of it. I think that's something that, Greg Berhalter early in his tenure had said in 2018 that he wants to change the way the world thinks about American soccer, right? And that's a lovely thing to say, but it's also incredibly ambitious. Like, if you're a train conductor and you say that you want to change the way that people think about railroads, that's a bizarre thing to say, right? You just want to be able to keep the thing on track and get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And what you saw was Greg Berhalter kind of wrestling with what it meant to be an American soccer team and wanting to try too hard to make it, we're possession based. No, that didn't quite work. So we're going to be a team that counters. And we're going to have verticality as our chief trait, and then it doesn't come off for a few games. And there's just kind of this constant shuffling and hemming and hawing about what to be. And when you think about when the U.S. men's national team has been at its best, and I think that the example from, I guess, this millennium would be the 2002 World Cup, where the men went to the quarterfinal, and the 2009 Confederations Cup, I would argue, when they beat Spain at their absolute height between the European Championship and the World Cup, and before losing to the final in Brazil. Those were teams coached by Bruce Arena and Bob Bradley that knew what they had in terms of their player pool, catered to their strengths, and didn't apologize for the way that they did. They made themselves very difficult to break down. They had fortified midfielders, dedicated defenders who wanted to stay back, who took pride in stymieing opponents from creating chances rather than needing to go forth and do their own work on every single possession. And it was a very consistent bedrock that became dependable. It became easy to identify players who could fit and what their roles would be. Left back was always an issue with the pool until Anthony Robinson. So now that's also an advantage, frankly. But you need a coach who is not going to apologize for the strength of their player pool and not try to force them to play in a way that is differently from where they are in their club. And I think that if I look at my top option personally, and something that I've said a little bit this week, I have a piece that's going to come up where it mentions him as well. It's Hervé Renard, who is currently the coach of the French women's national team. He had led Zambia to its first African Cup of Nations victory in 2012. He won the tournament again with Côte d'Ivoire in 2015. He was the coach who led Saudi Arabia to beat Argentina at the start of the 2022 World Cup, and then he took a France women's team in shambles, took it over, and within a few months got them to a quarterfinal of a World Cup. He is a serial work with what you've got, build a strong culture, get players to buy in around their own collective strength, try to cut down on the large egos. and adapt and take accountability. And really, to me, that checks all the boxes of what you're looking for. He's someone who's used to coaching internationally as well, so there's not going to be that sort of tough acclimation to international soccer from club coaches, which Berhalter, you saw, Jurgen Klopp, of course, is another prominent example that's in U.S. men's national team fan circles right now. But the difference between international management and club, you can't just replace players in the transfer window. You're stuck with the pool that you've got for the most part, right? You don't see these players every day. So being able to get them to memorize and perfect an ideology and those sorts of relationships on the field is just not possible. And so to have someone like Renard who comes in has already done that at a high level and has already gotten programs to maximize their previous heights. That's kind of what U.S. soccer needs on the men's side right now. And they went, and I understand that now you're contrasting that hire with Emma Hayes', right? And bringing in one of, if not the best women's soccer manager in the world of any gender into the program is a very ambitious hire. And so to them, they would say Jurgen Klopp is about as equivalent as they could do. But I think right now you need to look at the situation you have, the lack of time that the men have before the 2026 World Cup, and the lack of chances to test themselves now that they've kind of wasted the Copa America. I think you need someone who is very qualified for the job, and I think Hervé Renard is that guy.
Yeah, and just to underscore what you said about France and where they were when he took over, France's longtime captain, Wendy Renard, had been said that like she wasn't going to play for France in the World Cup because the coach that was there was so toxic and terrible, and there were other players who had made that same proclamation that ultimately forced the French Federation to fire that coach. Renard comes in, Renard, who you're talking about, Jeff, comes in, and all those French players were like, okay, this guy's on the level. He's good. We like him. We'll play now. And for a large group of players to kind of get back into the Federation, reacclimate, and then ultimately come together to make a quarterfinal of a World Cup is remarkable. And I'm also curious, like, how that kind of personality that Renard has is this guy who has been able to galvanize men, women, in Africa, in Europe, all over the world, how that would then play with an American group that did like Berhalter. In fact, that was one of the criticisms at times for folks is like, yeah, they liked him, but as students in a class, do you like Roger Bennett from Men in Blazers used this analogy is like, yeah, everyone likes the teacher, the substitute that just lets you watch movies and talks about smoking weed. Like, that's not what you actually need in a teacher. You need a real teacher who's going to teach you stuff, and you realize the value of that later on. So I'm curious how Renard ultimately would play with this U.S. group of players from a personality, cohesion, et cetera standpoint.
Well, I think that, look, it's not going to be that sort of, I think the substitute teacher analogy does work to a degree where I think that you could look at this pool of players and, a lot of them got their debuts under Greg Berhalter. And so inherently, Greg Berhalter's legacy is going to in part be crafted by and determined by the successes of the players that he introduced to the program, being able to get Serginho Dest and Yunus Musa to commit to the program rather than, playing for another national team, Gio Reyna for that matter as well with England, right? And so I think that for some of them, they knew their spot was secure. If you're Tim Ream, who falls out of the Fulham rotation entirely and only plays one game in the season finale against Luton for the rest of the year after February, you still know that you're one of his guys and you can go in and you can be a vital leader and a starter, even if you're out of fitness. At the Copa America, Gio Reyna only has to play a few hundred minutes, and he feels like he has kind of owed that chance, frankly, after the debacle in the wake of the 2022 World Cup and just some other conversations he would have had with Berhalter. Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie can have character issues and immediately walk back into the lineup, right? And these are sorts of things where you feel complacent and you feel secure and you don't really need to push yourself and you don't really see the wins registering for players. And there's an asterisk on all of this, by the way, it's Christian Pulisic, where you see that the wins aren't hitting as well as they used to, and they aren't as surprising or as earned maybe perhaps. And the losses maybe aren't hitting as hard, where maybe not as many players look as disappointed to lose against Panama as you would hope to see, right? Or to see such an inspired comeback where they don't even score a goal, hardly really even create many chances to do so for that matter, and where the most optimistic 6 minutes of that final game against Uruguay had nothing to do with what was happening in that stadium, but had everything to do with Bolivia scoring an equalizer against Panama, which would have gotten the U.S. through on a tiebreaker over Panama. And that was the highlight of that entire game. So, I mean, if you're looking overall, how would someone like Renard look? It's also speculative, right? Like, who even knows if he is the guy or if he will be, right? But I think that overall, to have a coach who isn't as familiar, and this is where you kind of go away from, honestly, there aren't many coaches in the in the contention or in the rumor mill who would have that sort of intimate experience coaching them at the club level, which could be very advantageous because almost no matter what, it's going to be a fresh eye. You're going to be back to one. There are going to be a handful of players who will know their places just because of their caliber compared to the rest of the pool. But everyone else is trying to figure out where they fit in, how they can help the team, and ultimately have to prove to a fresh set of eyes that they are so worthy of being a starter for the U.S. men's national team or a squad member or a pool player or a depth option, you name it. But I think that sort of inclination is vital at this point in order to get more out of this team, because unfortunately they don't really have many more chances to test themselves before they're close up in the summer of 2026.
With Jeff Reuter from The Athletic, and I'd be remiss, Jeff, the more I think about having just said the Roger Bennett analogy out loud with the substitute teacher smoking weed, that just says so much about the school that Roger went to growing up in Liverpool, England. Although if you have read Roger's book, which I just did about a month ago, that's actually not surprising. That is a perfect Roger Bennett analogy.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, he's an interesting childhood. Interesting book that Roger wrote. Anyway, apropos of none of that, last but not least here, you do mention Pulisic, who I think has to be mentioned as kind of an aside to this final question. He is a legitimately world-class player. He has scored, I believe it was in the Champions League final when he was with Chelsea. If not, it was the semi. Like he's done things in Champions League that no American has ever done. He is playing legitimate minutes for AC Milan and playing extraordinarily well for one of the biggest clubs in the world. Outside of him, I think there are legitimate questions now about this player pool and whether Berhalter was getting the most out of them. Obviously, U.S. Soccer says not. But for this next coach who comes in, as we look ahead to 2026, what are fair expectations for what you think this player pool actually is? While they might play at a lot of big clubs, none of them are playing major minutes in the way that Pulisic is. So, like, what is this player pool at this point in the American soccer trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, it's strong. It's maybe not quite as confident as it used to be, though. I think that there were a lot of players who played with a chip on their shoulder because at their club, maybe they were not given an opportunity to play in Europe until 28 because of how the world viewed Major League Soccer and didn't see it as a viable other league that players can move on from, which they are now, akin to Argentina and Holland and Belgium and whatever, these sort of second and third tier nations in terms of player development that aren't the big five in Europe. So that's a step forward for the program that has helped a lot of players get those moves younger and be able to get those chances to develop in the European system sooner, which I think is also of major help. And so as a result of that, though, every other country has kind of benefited from that globalization of the sport. And now you don't need to know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who has seen this player in order to decide to maybe give him a trial or sign him or watch him at a World Cup, right? You don't have those panic transfers on the back of a tournament like you did even a decade ago, James Rodriguez to Real Madrid. So
Sure.
I think that, players have gotten to the right spots now, but the reality is they need to show that they actually are of the caliber where they deserve the steam that comes with playing in those big five leagues, or maybe it doesn't matter, and that's totally fine. I'm very happy to accept that reality that the league doesn't dictate the quality of a player as much as it used to. So I think that if I look at where they stack up in the world, I think that on their day, they are still a top 20 program in the world, which is great, but a quarterfinal involves, count them, 8 teams.
Right.
And so, you have to be able to be better on your day than another one of the teams that is in that top 8 of the world. And I think that the U.S. is far closer to 20th than 8th if you are just purely looking at that ranking. So how do you make up that ground? How do you play savvily? How much can you rely on Christian Pulisic to carry you through big games? Unfortunately, it kind of seemed like he had to, or has had to too often during the Berhalter era. So do you have someone who can come in and find a way to get Balogun more involved, to get Reina more involved, to get McKennie more involved, to bring Josh Sargent in to lead the line alongside Balogun, whatever the case is. But you need to be able to find a way where you can consistently score beyond your number one option having a good game, because that's how every single team will try to game plan to nullify you. So I think overall it really is going to be about someone who can maximize the potential and get players to push hard to find something new within them on the international level, because their club side has never been more stable for an American men's player in the history of the sport.
Jeff Ruder writing about all of this at The Athletic. You said you got a piece coming out tomorrow on Reynard and perhaps some other coaching candidates, or a specific profile on him?
Yeah, just kind of more about the ethos and the ideology and what's at stake, and whether or not Matt Crocker and U.S. Soccer have a plan to be able to move this thing forward.
Looking forward to reading it. Thanks so much for your time, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Keep it up.
All right, that is Jeff Ruder, everybody, with us from The Athletic here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, Anthony, the ESPYs are tonight, the annual sports awards show. So I say we pull up the old candidates and we pick all the ESPY winners. We're the voting for the ESPYs. Did you know that?
I did know.
Yeah, okay, well, that's what we're doing next. Wrapping up the final half hour of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You can also rewind, listen to any part of the show, or we have our podcast in there as well. If you prefer that style of on-demand listening, just search the Hoffman Show and have right at it, including our interview with Joe Theismann at 5 o'clock. If you missed that, we got a little snippet for you coming up in the best thing from our show today, coming up at 6:45. Right now, though, Anthony Haney, it is time for us to look ahead to tonight's ESPY Awards. Insert ESPY's music here. Ba 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 ba. I don't remember what yet. There is a distinct ESPY's music. I just can't remember what it sounds like.
I couldn't tell you either.
Okay, well that makes two of us. We got a couple of the awards nominees in front of us. Ready to hand out some awards, Anthony?
Before we hand out the awards, who's hosting?
Serena Williams.
I thought it
is
was
hosting.
Serena.
Yeah, Serena Williams is hosting. I need to check out. Very excited to watch the new series of on ESPN Plus of her. I can't remember what it's called, but it's similar to like what they did with Brady a couple years ago. And she sits down for a bunch of interviews. They talk about her career. It's like multiple parts, and the clips that have come out are phenomenal. So excited for that. And I'm sure there's no coincidence that there's a big giant Serena Williams series on ESPN Plus, and she is hosting the ESPYs. And that couldn't possibly be. They want to make sure that she's in the spotlight and people are very interested in Serena Williams. There'll be no commercials for that during the show, the award show tonight.
Oh, none.
None at all. None at all. By the way, I think Yates is there, and hopefully he'll join us tomorrow. But every time I say that Clinton's going to join us on a Friday, then he can't.
Yep.
So Clinton's definitely not going to be here tomorrow. Anyway, the first one that, on my little list here is actually one of the most interesting awards, I think, Anthony. I have a distinct winner, but I'm curious what you say. Comeback Athlete of the Year.
Ooh.
Zion Williamson, who low-key was phenomenal for New Orleans this year. Like really kind of found himself again as a top-flight NBA player. Paige Beckers, who came back off the ACL and was amazing leading UConn right until they ran into Caitlin Clark in Iowa in that epic, was that a Final Four game?
It was a Final Four.
Yeah, Final Four. I was like, is that Elite Eight, Final Four? Yeah, Final Four game.
That's for the game, man.
So Paige Beckers. Simone Biles, who's obviously back to being the best gymnast in the world after she had the twisties and the whole deal. And it's kind of been a long-term comeback for her. And then Joe Flacco, who had to overcome being old and playing for the Cleveland Browns to lead the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. Who would you have in this category?
I'm going with Joe Flacco.
What? What did Flacco come back from besides being bad and old?
I think if you can literally hop off your couch, lead your team to the play, I think that's impressive, dude.
I'm not saying it's not impressive.
I'm not going Zion. I think Zion did have a phenomenal season. Paige also had a phenomenal season. Simone, I'm not too familiar with her story, so that's maybe why I didn't choose Simone. But the fact that she's back to, being the best gymnast in the world.
Yeah, I think Simone's the right answer.
Yeah.
Biles, like comeback, if you will, goes all the way back to the Tokyo Olympics, so 2021. Remember, she had the twisties, which is a neurological disease, basically, where like she kind of lost her proprioception, which when you're flying through the air as a gymnast is terrifying because you could just crash on your head because you can't figure out where you are in the air and which way's up, which way's down as you're twisting and flipping, and like that's really bad. And so the ability to fight through that and the willingness to not give up and just be like, and plus, if you want to talk about being old, I know it's relative, but for her sport, she's 27. You don't still do gymnastics at 27. It's not a thing. You retire at like 21 and you're old. As Simone Biles has talked about in I think it was the 2016 games, she would call Allie Raceman grandma. Raceman was 22.
Wow.
And Simone's still going.
Hey, look, you learn something new every day. I didn't know this. I didn't know all of this.
So, yeah.
27 is crazy.
It's her ability to come back. Who's older, Joe Flacco at 38 in the NFL or Simone Biles at 27
Probably
in gymnastics?
Simone.
I think Simone.
Easily.
Like, Simone's doing the Brady bit, both in that she's the GOAT and she's playing at an age that you just don't play at.
Yeah, and she's still winning.
And she's still the best in the sport.
Yeah.
Everyone else is playing for second unless something bad happens for Simone. When, Lord willing, no twisties, no nothing, she'll be good, and she's going to go win a gold medal in Paris.
Wow. I feel 1,000 times smarter today. So if you can ask me this question again, go ahead.
Who is your comeback athlete of the year?
Biles.
Yeah. That's the correct answer. NHL player, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, and Connor McDavid. My understanding is that Connor McDavid is the correct answer.
That dude is nasty.
MLB player, Ronald Acuna, Corey Seager, Shohei Ohtani, Garrett Cole.
I think you got to go with Shohei.
I think you do too. However, how awkward. With all the gambling stuff and everything that happened. Here's our guy. You last saw his face potentially on SportsCenter because his interpreter's going to jail. Yikes. NBA player, Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic.
Dang.
That's tough.
So watch this. This is the ESPYs, though, Craig.
Yeah.
This is the ESPYs. Give us the best player. Has Giannis ever won this award? Like, how many?
I'm sure Giannis had to win it a couple years ago when he won the finals.
Yeah, but I just don't think you see too many international players win this award.
No, I would say it's probably been more American players.
Jokic has been.
You got 3 internationals if you count Shea because he's Canadian.
Yeah, he's Canadian too.
So you got 2.
I'm gonna
go with
Europeans. Jason Tatum just because he won.
Okay, honestly, I think that's fair. He's the best player on the best team.
Yeah.
I'd probably go Jokic.
I would say Jokic definitely probably deserves the award.
But Luka also too, making the finals. What's up? SGA, damn near MVP.
Yeah.
So it's a tough category. So you're going Tatum?
I'm going JT, baby.
I'm gonna go Luka.
Okay.
Just for kicks and giggles.
Okay.
NFL player, McCaffrey, Myles Garrett, Lamar Jackson, Patty Mahomes.
Patty.
1, 2, 3, Mahomes.
Like, no question.
But Garrett had a great year. So
Garrett had a phenomenal year.
And so honestly, so did McCaffrey and so did Lamar. They all had fantastic years. But like Patty Mahomes was Patty Mahomes, and then he won a Super Bowl. So
if Lamar beats Patty, I think no brainer, he's the guy.
Well, yeah.
But you got to beat the guy to be the guy.
Bang, bang. This one's all you. Next one's all me. Boxer. Alexander Usyk. Sorry if I'm murdering these names.
Oh, Usyk.
Sinicia Estrada. Terrence Crawford. Nayu Inu.
Oh, my God. So, Craig, I will say these are the 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in my eyes.
Which 3? Yeah.
You got Inoue. He's
Yeah.
a Japanese boxer.
Mhm.
Terrence Crawford, American boxer. And then you got Usyk, who is, oh, my gosh, Ukrainian.
Okay. And Estrada's top female boxer.
Yes. This one is tough. I'm torn between Terrence Crawford and Usyk, but I would probably lean Terrence Crawford just because.
That's your guy.
No. Errol Spence is my guy, and he beat up my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Soccer player of the year. Kylian Mbappe.
Ooh.
Aitana Bonmati, the Ballon d'Or winner on the female side. Naomi Girma, U.S. soccer player of the year. And Vinicius Jr. of Real Madrid. I would probably go Bonmati. Like, she won the Ballon d'Or, and her club, Barcelona, won everything. The only thing they lost was their coach to your Washington Spirit. Bienvenidos, Jonathan! Like, Vinicius Jr. and Real Madrid won Champions League. And they obviously won the Spanish League, but, like, the Spanish League, in terms of depth compared to, like, the Premier League. Mbappe had a phenomenal year with PSG in France, and France has obviously played very well in the last, bunch of months. They just lost in the Euros, but whatever.
Yep.
And Naomi's been Naomi is just an unbelievable player, but like with the year the U.S. has had, she was great for San Diego in the league, but I think you have to give it to Bonmati. I think a combination of personal excellence, team success, winning the whole deal. Bonmati has the best resume.
And what is that award that she won? It's the most goals, right?
No, the Ballon d'Or is the player of the year.
Oh, player of the year. Never mind.
You're thinking of the Golden Boot.
Okay.
That's in any given tournament who scores the most goals.
Yeah.
But you tried for your soccer knowledge. I am proud of you.
I'm a casual. I do watch it. I understand it.
This is another fun one. Female athlete of the year. Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, Nelly Korda, Coco Gauff.
Who is Nelly Korda?
Nelly Korda is LPGA, and she's had an absolutely absurd year.
Yeah.
Asia should have been the MVP and won the WNBA title. Coco won the U.S. Open. And then Clark, I think I would give it to Clark because I'm not saying she's a better player than Asia in the same sport, but like the last 12 months encompasses what she did at Iowa, where she broke every record in the book.
Yeah.
So I think, and not to mention her impact on women's sports in general. All three of these women have had a huge, huge impact and have helped raise the profile of their sports. And like, they're all amazing, amazing athletes. But Clark is what she's done in terms of elevating women's basketball into the stratosphere, the viewing numbers, everything. Like, I think Clark for 2023, 2024 should get this award. Even if a year from now, the way Asia's going, Asia seems like she's cruising. Certainly to being ahead of Clark next year for this award.
Yeah, hold on. Did Asia not win it last year, MVP?
She didn't win MVP last year. Remember, she got that 1 4th place vote, and Stewie won the MVP, and it was very stupid.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you. I definitely think CC will probably win this award.
Yeah. Then there is WNBA player, which is Alyssa Thomas, Stewie, Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier.
Asia.
I would go Asia. Stewie certainly has something to say about that. She did win the MVP, but Asia should have, and she won the title. Driver of the year, you got a couple of different sports. I would say Max Verstappen, though, ultimately should be the winner there because of how dominant he was in Formula One. Male athlete, Scotty Scheffler, Connor McDavid, Shohei Ohtani, Patty Mahomes. I think I'd go Mahomes.
Yep. Going
breakthrough athlete, Wemby, Haley Bryant, LSU gymnast, CJ Stroud, Juju. I would go Wemby.
Yeah.
And then everything else is stuff that we need, like play of the year. I need to know the actual play. So championship performance is a fun one. So there's a couple other fun ones. ESPYs are tonight. You're welcome, ESPN, for the free promotion. Thanks for giving us a radio segment of fun things to talk about in the middle of July. When we get back, the best part of our show and real things real people said into real microphones. Final few minutes of the Hoffman Show as we wrap up here on a Thursday. Tomorrow, it's Friday, which means we'll have a great show and a great time, and then we'll have a great weekend. I don't know what else we have on the show tomorrow, Anthony.
It's a great question, Craig.
It was kind of crazy because this is the time of year where typically we kind of figure it out as the day goes. We walked out of here yesterday kind of knowing the show rundown for today.
Yes,
it was
we did.
kind of a wacky. I was like, whoa, that's not stressful.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I
Love
woke
that.
up stress-free.
Yeah. I woke up very tired this morning. I stayed very tired.
Did you get whooped yesterday in your workouts?
Dog. Did we not talk about this yesterday?
Briefly. I think in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yesterday was supposed to be an easy workout for me. And I was on the treadmill taking one of our classes. And, again, I was just trying to take it relatively easy. And so I kept looking down at my watch, being like, I feel like my heart rate should be a little higher. It feels like it's a little bit higher. But I kept looking down. It was like in the 140s. And I was like, sick. I must just be – my fitness is improving. Be able to run at a speed that's this fast and heart rate's at 140. Kept kind of tinkering my Garmin watch because sometimes it gets off and, you know, if it's not sitting in the right place, it won't show you the accurate number. And so I keep tinkering with it, and then I look down again, and suddenly it says 179. I want it to be in the 150s at that part of the workout. And so when you overexert to an extreme, we call it blowing up. And I hadn't blown up at that point, but I kind of just gave into the fact that I was just going to blow up. And sure enough, in the next block of the workout, I blew up. And then today, because of that, when I went to go do the workout that I had planned for today, because I woke up and I was like, oh, some of this data suggests that maybe I'm not as tired as I feel. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Did a 2-mile warm-up on the tread before I did my lift because I was just trying to sneak in a little bit of extra mileage as I'm in the middle of like run training right now. And my heart rate was way higher than it should have been. I was like, yep, oh, that's not good. And I get into the lift and I just bailed on the lift. I was like, I can't do this today. My legs, I don't have nothing in them. So I just did it. I did like some easy machine work. Got a little upper body pump. Then by little, I mean very little. And I think tomorrow's going to be an off day.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't gone to the gym all week.
How do you feel? You probably feel good.
Terrible.
Really?
I really want to go to the gym.
Oh.
Well,
but your body probably feels good. And like now you got that
I'm finally
antsy.
back.
Yeah, because
I was tired.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I always say about every 2 months I take 4 days off.
Yeah.
Like, and I take days off in between it. It's not like I work straight for 2 months. But like eventually you just get to a point where you're like, I'm tired as hell. I'm going to let my body recover. And then after about 4 days, you get real itchy. And after about 3 days, you get itchy. And once you're itchy, take one more and then go back. So, you want to work out tomorrow?
What time?
I just told you I'm not working out. But you have fun. Taking the day off.
I will work out tomorrow.
Excellent. I'm happy for you. Very happy for you. I don't know. We'll see what happens when I wake up. Maybe I'll do something. I got a coach tomorrow. So, moving around, that might be my workout. Best thing from our show today was Joe Theismann was awesome with us. And late in that interview, and the full thing's worth it. You check it out in the Hoffman Show podcast, wherever you get yours. Just search the Hoffman Show. And as soon as we get off the air here, in fact, maybe that's a great time to listen to. You got more of your commute, just flip over the Hoffman Show podcast. This interview is already up in our podcast feed. But we were talking about Jaden Daniels, and Joe said something that was interesting, and that he didn't think Jaden Daniels should or will play in the preseason. And I was like, well, I got to follow up on that. Why do you say that? And this is what Joe said.
Why would you put your starting quarterback out there? Let's say you got your starting offensive line. They'll probably play a series, maybe. So you give him a little chance to get his feet a little bit wet. But you don't want him You don't want to risk him out there
Sure.
in a preseason game. Craig, they would tear Dan apart if Jaden got. They would.
You're not wrong. You're 1,000% not wrong.
So where's your risk reward? You give him a chance to grow into the position, and this is going to be with every rookie quarterback that starts. Every and any rookie quarterback that starts. I would be surprised if you see them more than a series, possibly two in the preseasons. You know they're not going to play in the third for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And there's a big, long period of time before the opener, too, as far as that goes. You know, do you really risk them out there in the second game? And the other part of it is how am I going to be able to evaluate the guys that I'm looking at to fill out the roster if I don't have them out on the field? And if I put the guys that don't have experience out there with him, I go to the risk of getting them killed. So, you know, it's sort of a quandary, but in my mind, it's no question a decision that I don't take the chance of putting him out on that football field and having something happen to him in the preseason. And I think it's absolutely nuts. And I know that the league is driven by money, but I think it's nuts that you go to 18 games.
And then we talked about that, and we talked about all kinds of other stuff. So search The Hoffman Show in your favorite podcast app, and you can get our chat with Joe T. Anthony, I feel like by the time I hit the stinger for real things, we won't have time to actually play anything.
I think we have a short one.
We do have. I can do it without playing the music.
Oh, Denny Alba, yeah.
Well, Denny's a little longer. This one was just funny. There's one of the broadcasts. I wish I remember who's it was. Well, now I can't give the credit. I don't want to do that. We have 30 seconds left in the show. Honestly, at this point, if you're still listening, just remember you can always listen. If you're listening on the AM, you can also use the Hoffman Show. Or use the Odyssey app, and you can get, especially if you have Apple CarPlay, nice digital clearness. And just search the Hoffman Show in the podcast app of your choice and listen to the Theismann interview. Because our all due respect to the folks at BetMGM tonight, which by the way includes Denton Day tonight. Denton's on the show. But I want you to check out that podcast because it was good. And then we'll see you tomorrow.